Hi, in this video I want to show you how I built myself a rudder for my wooden sea kayak. The pieces using a special blade made for cutting aluminum in my orbital saber saw. I wanted the blade to taper from full thickness of 1/4 inch at the front edge down to a narrow taper on the trailing edge, so I used a jig for a small trim router to make those cuts. I had some slippery plastic 1/8 of an inch thick, and I wanted to cut out 2 big washer spacers for each side of the blade, and I had 1/4 inch aluminum plate for the blade, so I made the pulley out of 1/4 inch aluminum and the blade out of 1/4 inch aluminum with an 1/8 inch plastic spacer on each side of the blade. Gave me full 3/4 inch, which worked out for a 3/4 inch spacer bar of aluminum that went on the front edge of the router and carried the pivot pin. I used a file and a die cutting bit in a Dremel tool to help shape and round off the aluminum rough edges and taper the edges on the 2 uprights and on the blade itself. The blade pivots on a 1/4 inch stainless steel bolt that goes through the 2 uprights, and I used a piece of 3/8 inch tubing that the bolt goes through as a spacer, which is exactly 3/4 of an inch thick, so that when the sandwich is assembled of the blade, the pulley, and the 2 spacers, with that aluminum tube through the pivot point of the blade, when I tighten the bolt up, everything is compressed tight and the blade moves up and down freely, but doesn't get pinched. So when the bolt can be tightened fully home, but the blade doesn't pinch and bind because the aluminum tube that goes through acts as a spacer. Pivot tube spacer, I ended up using the bottom end of an old broken alpine ski pole, cut off 3/4 of an inch long, that fits snugly into the hole on the blade, pulley, and spacers. I drilled a hole through the blade and made a hole partially into the pulley and tied the cord that raises and lowers the blade into a knot and hid it inside the space between the pulley and the blade itself. I cut out the pulley out of a piece of 1/4 inch aluminum plate, and it's 3 inches diameter because that's the biggest hole saw that I have. And then I used a router bit to cut that profile on the edge, which is in the shape of a pulley to carry the cord. I think in retrospect I would have used a slightly larger pulley to make it a little easier to raise the rudder blade during operation. I used 1/8 inch parachute cord for the line that raises and lowers the rudder, and then it goes into a piece of 3/8 bungee cord up near the cockpit hip. I was able to look at 3 different kayaks with rudders in the backyard and take them apart. And so my plan came from studying the other rudders, and I took the features that I thought were the best from each of these rudders and combined them into this one that I put together for my wooden pygmy kayak. This video continues on part 2.